Hey, welcome to this week's episode of Livewire TV. Livewire TV is a part of Livewire Media where we do corporate videography and video marketing. I am your host, Rohini. Each Wednesday, I bring you guys a guest who is really at the pinnacle of their game. We talk all about mindset, business strategies, marketing strategies. Essentially, we have really inspiring conversations that's going to ignite your business growth. This week, I've got the incredible Tony Leake. Tony, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Rohini. It's great to be here, and thank you so much for inviting me.
No problem. I'm actually super excited to have you on this show because me and Tony have connected like a while back, and when we connected, we just hit it off straight away. Tony is all about helping you to unearth your limiting beliefs, get over yourself, and really achieve what it is that you are looking for. Now, what we're going to be talking about today is anxiety, overcoming it, and ultimately what really triggers it in the first place, and how do you deal with anxiety? It's something that we all, well, most of us feel throughout our business journey, and yet a lot of people don't talk about it. They just try and deal with it, or they just try and speak to another network to maybe get some help from it. So Tony, how did you get into this line of work?
I got into this line of work through my own need, because you've hit on a really important point, Rohini, is that most people experience stress and anxiety, some people to a bigger extent than others. I used to be a software developer, worked in IT for a long time. I loved it. Then suddenly one day out of the blue, I started having really debilitating panic attacks. And I mean, panic attacks that put me in hospital. And it was just so far out of anything I'd experienced before. Didn't see it coming, didn't know what was happening. I spent 2 years going in and out of hospital, and nobody ever told me that I was experiencing panic attacks. I don't know if you know, but the symptoms of an anxiety attack and a heart attack can be very, very similar.
I was aware of that, yeah, but
okay. I was, because I spent 2 years of my life thinking that I was going to die at any moment.
That must have been pretty terrifying.
It is the scariest thing that I've ever been through in my whole life. And, I know a lot of other people go through it, but I wouldn't wish it on anybody. So from there, to cut a long story short, I had to figure out how to help myself. And by doing that, and I got into personal development to help myself. I didn't go through therapy as such. I got into personal development and figured out how to fix my own mindset. And I did train in some therapies along the way. And as I did, that's when I learned actually I was quite good at helping other people as well. So that's where the journey began. And it's been 10 years of constant learning and constant tweaking since then.
10 years and you've not looked back?
Yeah, maybe once or twice. But actually, when I get to this point, I haven't looked back.
Yeah.
I'm not looking back now.
So Tony, I think you've obviously had quite an interesting journey. I mean, how did you deal with that anxiety and that extreme level of stress?
The first thing was I had to understand what was happening, and it took me a long time to do that, if I'm honest. It can be done a lot faster than I did it. I did it by reading lots of books and going to seminars and trying to figure out why I was getting these results in my life. I think the turning point came when I finally was able to admit to myself that I was kind of causing this. Because up until that point, because I'd never heard of personal development, I didn't know that I was in control of anything in my life. I thought everything out there was in control of my life, which meant I blamed everything that was happening to me on things out there. And it's when I was able to, and you're into personal development, you get this, Rohini, it's that point where you go, actually, I am in control. I can affect what's going on in my life. And then I was able to say, actually, what do I want instead of what I've got now? And what do I need to do to get there?
So you focused on what is possible rather than what's actually happening in the reality.
I did. It wasn't like putting a switch on. It can be, but for me, it was a gradual realization rather than a light switch. But yes,
that's often how it works out. It's not like we just wake up one day and think, I want to be better today. Or I feel, do you know what I mean? Like, it's often a gradual process of learning and trial and error, and lots and lots of reading books, going to seminars, lots and lots of surrounding yourself with the right people, lots of thinking, oh, I didn't know that about me, or lots of facing your demons, essentially, isn't it?
It's exactly that. And one of the reasons why sometimes it has to be a longest journey is that for me, certainly, it wasn't about changing my mindset a little bit. It was about I needed to change my whole worldview. And
Mm.
I'd spent, oh, I mean, how old was I when this was happening? I was like 45, 48 years old, something like that. So I'd spent a long time creating this view of how the world worked, and suddenly I was wrong. And I had to recreate it all.
So that's another word for that is patterns, right? So we have
Yeah.
these preconceived ideas or patterns that we, or habits, if you like, we go through every single day. We have habits consciously, subconsciously, and even super subconsciously. If you didn't know that, then now you do. How can people kind of tap into all three of those elements and essentially create massive change? And I know that's a big, big question to ask.
Yes, it is a big question, but you hit the nail on the head because you mentioned three things, but I would you can condense it down into one of those words, which is habit. Being
Mm.
anxious is a habit. One of the things that we have to learn is that being anxious, overreacting to stuff, always thinking the worst possible outcome. We tend to think of these things as being character traits, that it's just the way I am, I can't do anything about it. But actually, they're not, they're habits. I learned to think in a very negative way, and a lot of people do the same.
Do you know what I said to somebody the other day, and this might trigger some of you, so I apologize if it does. Mental health is a choice.
Yeah.
I got a backlash of people saying to me, I don't choose to feel anxious, I don't choose to feel depression. You may not consciously choose it, but because of the habits that you've created, you're saying to yourself, this is my belief.
Yes, absolutely. But we can turn that into a positive, because one
Mm.
of the things that I will often say to a client, but it's never early on in the relationship because it's not the right time for them to hear it. But it's the truth as far as I'd see it, which is you created this anxiety, but then we turn that into positive, because if you created this, what can you create instead?
Yeah,
Because you created this without even trying. And so once you put a bit of effort in, what could you create instead? You could create something amazing.
yeah. So do you think that people, well, obviously you believe that people can change their habits completely, and obviously that's not going to be an overnight process. Or is it an overnight process actually? I don't know. You tell me.
It's it can be, but it doesn't have to be. And
Yeah.
so this is where we all have limiting beliefs, because there's so many beliefs about habits take a long time to change. The personal development industry has got so much to answer for on this. There's if you read books, there's books that say it takes 21 days to change a habit. Another book says it takes 41 days to change a habit. And those are two of the biggest things that will hold people back. One is because if somebody reads and believes that I can change myself in 21 days and they
Yeah.
don't, if it doesn't work for them, they're going to then create a new limiting belief that says, well, actually, I can't change because the book says I should be able to change in 21 days. So maybe I'm just not capable.
Yeah. And on that note as well, a lot of gurus have say that you have to find the source of where your anxiety comes from. Now, I know from me, from my personal experience, that does help. But do you think it's essential to know where that source of anxiety triggered from?
No.
Why is
They,
that?
um, because sometimes it can be as simple as, what do you want instead? Oh, I think the only times when it's absolutely necessary is when there's some kind of trauma that created it. And
Mm.
anxiety can come from trauma, but it doesn't always. And in my experience, it's less often than it's often. Um, so some people want to know, and if they want to know, then yes, it's important to know. But I like to be forward facing about this. So you've been anxious in the past. Let's put that in the past, because we can't change that. But what you can do is you can change what you do today. And by changing what you do today, you can create a better tomorrow.
Yeah. And how are stress and anxiety linked?
Um, they are bedfellows, but they are not the same thing. So people who are stressed are more likely to experience anxiety. People who are anxious anxiety causes stress. So you kind of get this circular thing going on, that there can be people who are really stressed but not particularly anxious,
Yeah.
but it's more likely to cause anxious thoughts. And the more often we do it, then we're wiring in those patterns. And then we're creating new habits that are not particularly helpful.
So what would be your tips then for creating new habits, positive habits?
Okay, my first one is changing your mindset about how long it takes to change a habit. Because if you've got a belief that it takes however long to change it. So this might sound really silly, but this is really important. I ask people, and I'll ask you the same question, Mohini. I'm going to make the assumption that you clean your teeth at least once a day.
Yeah, and I hope most of you guys do as well.
Yeah, me too. Can I make the assumption you've already done that once today, at least once today? When you pick the toothbrush up, whereabouts in your mouth did you start to brush your teeth?
I try to choose a different place each time.
Okay, you're one step ahead of me. And that's a great thing to do, because that reminds you have choice. Most people will go to the same place every single time. So I asked them to create a new habit of, if you all start there, choose a new place and start there. After 1 week, this new place will be the new habit. That one will feel wrong to go there. And that creates that little mindset that habits can be broken easily. Yeah. You are doing it so well choosing a new place every time, because we always have choice.
That's the reason why I choose to do it in that way, and also sometimes do it with my left hand. It feels a bit alien, but there's a whole science to it, which I'm not going to get into, and I'm sure that you can explain this. So guys, if you do want to know the science behind all of this, connect with Tony, because he will teach you everything that you need to know. But there's a lot of proof to say that when you do those little things, like even switching which hand you wear your watch on, or your rings on, or where you put your jewelry, it shifts things up in your conscious and subconscious mind, right?
Yeah, it does, because it reminds you that you have a choice, and everything that we do, every thought that we allow into our head is a choice. People say, can I stop these anxious thoughts popping into my head? And I think the honest answer is no. You know, sometimes it's almost like thoughts are out there and they jump into our head and we have no idea where they come from, but you don't have to engage with them. In the same place, if you were at a party and there was somebody who was really, you found them irritable and they came up and started talking to you, if you just completely deadpan ignore them, they'll go away pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Same with thoughts. But if you engage with that person, if you talk back to them, you've got them for the rest of the evening.
Yeah.
Same with thinking. If a thought you don't want pops into your head, choose a different one. And people say to me, Tony, I can't change my thoughts, they just pop into my head. So my response to that is always, think of a dog. And you've just thought of a dog, right? Now,
yeah.
Think of a lamppost.
Yep, yeah. Thought of a lamppost as well.
Now think of a trampoline.
Okay, yep.
Yeah, congratulations, you just chose your thoughts.
Yeah.
And we have choice, because we can always choose what the next thought is. We might not be able to choose what the one that popped into our head is, but we can choose to replace it with a different thought.
Yeah, amazing. And I know that this is all going to tie into the law of attraction and creating even more success in your life, right?
People who are not feeling anxious tend to have a better experience of life.
I find that sometimes helps mindfulness.
Yeah. So what's your definition of mindfulness?
For me, it's doing whatever you need to do to be at peace. And I know a lot of people, and guys, actually, let me know your thoughts on what you think mindfulness actually is. Comment below. So it could be taking a bath. It could be some form of self-care. It could be meditation. It could be some sort of chanting, whatever. It's whatever you need to do to raise your vibe. That's what it means to me. And I know a lot of people tend to think of it as, it's just meditation. I've got to sit there and go, and shut off all the thoughts. And after years and years of studying it, I've changed my beliefs about what I originally thought it was. Yeah.
That's great. And, mindfulness is different to a lot of people. To me, it just means being in the moment. Whereas, and I'm in that moment with you right here. It's because I know there's people watching this, but in my head that doesn't exist. And out there in my house, there's my wife and my children, but that's not existing. It's just this moment here. So for me, this is a mindful moment. And one of the reasons mindfulness is so good at overcoming anxiety is because it centers you in the moment. And anxiety doesn't live in the past. Anxiety lives in the future.
Yeah.
And if you bring yourself into the present moment, then there are no anxious thoughts, because anxious thoughts are when you're thinking about the future. If you're feeling anxious, bring your thoughts back into the present moment.
I think that's a really great tip. So you've covered the fact that you get to choose your thoughts, and two, when you choose your more positive thought, you then become more present in, like, as in the present in the now, right? And it just makes you feel a bit grounded, right?
I think
And
so.
that can take practice. What else would you suggest to people then to help them to get over that stress and anxiety?
Focus on the things in life that bring you joy and happiness, you know, and if you can't think of any, then you really need to focus on them. And
Yeah.
and it can be simple things like, you know, get out your photo album, or for people who are not old enough to know what a photo album is, get out your phone and look for some happy memories, because you've times that you spent with friends and with family and holidays, that kind of stuff. Look back at them and relive that moment. Don't just look at the picture, get back into it, because if you think of a memory in the right way, you experience all the emotions again. That's why people who are depressed, or one of the reasons, I've got to be careful here because there's lots of reasons people are depressed, but one of the reasons people hold themselves in depression is because they think of all the bad things that have happened in their life and live it over and over and over and over again, and they get the feelings back again.
Mm.
But when you relive the good moments over and over again, it inoculates you against the other stuff, because you can't change. There's always going to be horrible stuff out there. You can't change that.
Yeah, definitely.
And it's learning to become stronger inside so that that stuff out there can't touch you.
Yeah, 100%. Tony, your tips have been absolutely amazing. And I know that we've only just scratched the surface with overcoming anxiety, limiting beliefs, stress. So where can people connect with you to find out more about what you do, and also how they can really be a better version of themselves?
Okay, thank you for that. They can connect with me on LinkedIn by searching for Tony Leake, and Leake is Leake. My main website is tonyleake.com. That's probably the best place to start. And on there, if people want to know kind of what I'm about, really the place to go, there's a section on there called Life Mastery, and it's just loads of little videos of my thoughts about helping with anxiety, and some of it's just about not dealing with anxiety. It's just about having a better quality of life. And that's kind of me being almost unplugged and just talking off the cuff to a camera, my thoughts on how to live a better quality of life.
Love it, love it, love it. And I really recommend connecting with Tony on LinkedIn, because one, you'll learn so much about your mindset from him. And two, why not surround yourself with more positive people? It's a win-win situation.
Now, there is no better tip than that, connecting with positive people.
Exactly. So, Tony, thank you so much for joining us. And guys, thank you so much for watching with us as well. Thank you for all the love that you've been dropping on Facebook for us. Get your questions in below. And if you're watching on the replay, let me know. Let me know your thoughts on what we've discussed. And if you've got any questions for Tony, drop them in the comment section as well. See you next Wednesday, 7 p.m. GMT time, for another awesome conversation.